I wish a very good day to madam. First and foremost, I'm gonna be introducing myself. So my name is Muhammad Irfan bin Ibrahim, Bachelor of Psychology from the Human Development Faculty. This is my first year studying here in UPSI, and today I'm gonna be doing the comparison between inductive methodology versus deductive methodology. First and foremost, let's take a look at the main differences between inductive methodology and deductive methodology. So, inductive methodology, it aims at developing a new theory, which means that we want to develop a new theory, we want to make a new theory that has never been existed, that has never been discovered or developed by anyone else, by any scientists or researchers, but we want to develop a new theory. On the other hand, deductive methodology, it aims at testing an existing theory, which means that we want to test a theory that is already existed. If we are curious about the accuracy of that theory, we might test it out to satisfy our curiosity. Inductive methodology, it moves from specific observations to broad generalization, which means that once we observed the phenomena, we assume that it will always end up with the same result. Instead, on the other hand, deductive methodology, it moves from broad generalizations to specific observation. It is the opposite of inductive methodology. For a better understanding, let's take a look at the slide. So we can tell that inductive methodology and deductive methodology, these methodologies, they have their own steps or procedures. So inductive methodology has lesser procedures compared to deductive methodology. For inductive methodology, it has 3 steps. The first is specific observation, which means that we have to observe the phenomena. The second step is pattern recognition. We have to have this component. Throughout my observation, I have to recognize the pattern that is recurring, that keep occurring for the whole observation. Let's say that I do an observation for 2 months. For those 2 months, I have to recognize a pattern. I have to critically observe so I can recognize a pattern that keep occurring for the whole observation period. Finally, I have to come up with a general conclusion. I have to assume that everywhere this phenomena happens, it will always end up with the same result. So I have to come up with a general conclusion. I have to generalize it. On the other hand, deductive methodology, it has 5 steps or 5 procedures. The first one is we have to have an existing theory, which means that we have to know some theory that we are curious about its accuracy. Once we have that theory that has already been discovered by someone else, we have to formulate our own hypothesis, not theirs, not someone else's, but our own hypothesis in subject that we are curious about. To prove our hypothesis, we have to collect data and analyze the data. Once we have analyzed the data, we either have to support or reject our hypothesis. For a better understanding, let's take a look at our first example. So let's say that I observed something and I want to create a theory about it. So I observed a low-cost airline flight is delayed. That is the first step. So my observation is that a low-cost airline flight is delayed. So I observed that for months, let's say for 3 months. For the whole 3 months, I have to critically observe the phenomena so I can recognize a pattern that is recurring or keep occurring for the whole period. So I recognized that another 20 flights from low-cost airlines are delayed. Not only 1, not 2, but instead there were 20 another flights that were delayed. So finally, I came up with my generalization, with my conclusion that says low-cost airlines always have delays. The keyword is always. So I assume that all low-cost airlines always experience delays. Moving on to a deductive methodology approach. Let's say that my friend is curious about my theory's accuracy, so he might test it out to satisfy his curiosity. So because he wants to test out an existing theory, so he has to follow the approach of deductive methodology. So the first one is that he has to have an existing theory. In this case, he already has my theory that says low-cost airlines always have delays. So once he has that existing theory, he has to formulate his own hypothesis. His hypothesis says that if passengers fly with a low-cost airline, then they will always experience delays, always experience. So to prove his hypothesis accuracy, he has to collect data. He has to collect flight data of low-cost airlines. Once he has collected all the data, he has to analyze them. Once the data are analyzed, he noticed that 5 out of 100 flights of low-cost airlines are not delayed. Since the analyzed data says otherwise, because his hypothesis says that if passengers fly with a low-cost airline, they will always experience delays, but the analyzed data says otherwise. It says 5 out of 100 flights of low-cost airlines are not delayed, which means that not all low-cost airlines experience delays. So this rejects his hypothesis. Finally, he has to support or reject his hypothesis. Since the analyzed data says otherwise of formulated hypothesis, so he has to reject this hypothesis.